decimal place to the left twice.
Okay. And that gives you
4.73.
okay.
And then when you add that to the total bill, you get $52.02.
Okay. And did you see any pattern there while you were working on that?
Not really. I don't know
No?
that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they like start on these.
Yeah, there's patterns. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mark, what did you see?
The pattern that I found is that you only have to find the 10%.
Okay.
Half of 473 is 237. And that would be the tip for that bill.
It was what, 3 or 2?
237.
37. Thank you. Okay.
And if you add 10% together, that gets 20%, and that will be 946 for the next box over.
Is 9 what? I don't think it's 9, is it?
So
6.
20%.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you did 4.73 times 2?
Yeah.
And there you got 9.46?
46.
Okay, and did you see this 15% shortcut?
If you
Add the 10% and the 5%? Since I wrote it up there, because 5% plus 10% is 15. So if you add those two numbers together, what do you get?
709.
Okay.
So it's adding 2.36, like, and then you keep increasing it by another 5%, which is 2%.
You could also do that. Yeah, you could do the 5% times 3 would give you 15%. So you take the 5% value for your purchase or your dinner value times 3, and you should also get 7.09. That's another way to do it too. Yeah. Good pattern finding. What else did you see on that one? Did anyone have a different pattern they saw, Tori?
I did, and some of them were really close. I just rounded, what did I do?
47.29.
Oh, I converted the, goodness, what did I do? Oh, I did 48, sorry.
Okay, so
I rounded up to 48.
you said that's about $48. That's a nice round number, not a lot of pennies to deal with. And then?
And then, then that would do, times 10% would be 4.80. You just take off a zero.
Yeah. Okay. $4.80.
And
Good.
then, do that in half. Or actually, what did I do? I just did, I think, 0.5. Then I got 236 on the next one. And then I got 709 on the next one because I just added the 236 to the 480, and that gave me 709.
Okay.
And then 20, I just multiplied the 10% times 2. So I think I said the same thing. I just went back. I just rounded to 48 for easier numbers.
So now we all know that you can take your calculator and figure out each of those separately, right? 0.05 times our initial bill, whether you want to estimate it or leave it as its exact figure, you can come up with some numbers for those cells. But what I also wanted you to think about was patterns and what you could see between a 10%, a 5%, 15, and 20. Aaron first and then Sean. Go ahead, Aaron.
Start with the 5%. Once you figure that out, then we can just keep adding that percentage to each to the bill.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your final tip going to be when you go to a restaurant? This is a value judgment. What do you tip if you're willing to share that?
The service.
I usually tip $10 for a good service.
So if you buy a $5 lunch, you give them a 10? Oh my.
It's usually 15. Is it 15%?
I do like 15 or 20.
15 or 20.
Depends on the service.
So
Maybe
if
my friend.
it depends on the service, right?
The
And
reason
what
why I do that is because they don't make money. They only make like $2 an hour. And
I know.
that's what's taxed.
I know. So
So the bill,
but you're giving them 100% tip. If your restaurant bill is $5 and you give them 10, you're giving them a 100% tip. It's very, very large. They're going to love you, but it's extremely large.
so if we do 10%, say the bill is $20. I
Yeah.
would usually tip like 6.
Okay. So if the bill is $20, let's talk about this. You have a
This is like average
$20
service, just regular.
restaurant bill. That's how much your meal cost. And she's tipping, what did you say?
6. This is like average service.
$6 for an average service. What percent is she giving?
giving,
So we're saying $6 is what percent of $20?
10% is 2.
That's about 30%.
30% tip. Very good. That's a 30% tip. So if you choose to leave large tips, your waitress is not going to be mad at you. There's no question, but you're leaving way more than is expected. So it's up to you if you continue doing that. That's your decision. I'm not telling you how to tip in a restaurant because I used to live on tips. And the big tips, you love those people. But it's not average. It's not a normal size tip. So, Sean, did we talk about your question?
No. For the second one, I found a pattern.
Okay.
What I did is I just rounded up the 38.25 up to a 40.
So you made that 40. Okay. Would you see that as a good strategy for that meal? Call it a $40 meal, and then?
And then what I did for of course the percentages, I turned them into decimals, and then I multiplied to find it.
Okay.
And what I noticed is that for every 5% increase in the tip, there's a $2 increase.
that's how I've been telling you.
Yeah.
So a few of you found that.
So
Okay.
10%
Sometimes it helps you to find the 5%, but I'm telling you, when I'm thinking about the money for my mind, it's easy to find 10. Because what do? Move the decimal. How many places? So if I have $40 and I move my decimal, I'm going to give 40 cents for a 10% tip.
No, I just have 1 0.
Just one place. Move it just one place to the left. So a $40 bill, I'm going to move my decimal one place to the left. A 10% tip is $4. Okay, so $4, and you can find that by mentally just move your decimal one place. You can drop off the pennies because you want to be generous, right? Drop off the pennies and call it, okay, we're going to call it round up to 40. Call it $4 for a 10% tip. And what are you going to do for a 20%? It's doubled. So I just double that, so I'm going to leave $8 for a 20%. Jermaine?
Even if, if you take the 38.25, if you move it to the left once, you get 3.825, which is then 3.83, which is the exact amount. And then
So you can find the 10% mentally without having to do much. That's what you're saying? Okay.
2, you get your 20%.
Okay, which would be,
It's going to be 7.65.
so, okay.
If you take 3.83 and you divide it by 2, it gives you your 5%, which is 1.91. And then if you
And can you do that in your head? Just asking.
Yeah.
You can divide 3.83 by 2 in your head?
Well, I got no.
See, that's where where I prefer the 4, because, I can divide that one by 2 in my head. But with a calculator, you're right. Just divide it by 2.
Yeah, you could kind of do that. 'Cause that's just 150.
You can. It just takes you a little while, right? I mean, half of that is this, and then half of that, and then I have to add them, and so I have to remember carrying, and sometimes it's nasty, but if you've got a calculator or a cell phone, you can calculate the exact tip. But here's my next question. Does your waitress care if you got exactly 15% tip or exactly 20%, or is the ballpark what's important? Okay, but other times it's very important. We don't want to drop precision, and I want you to think about that. When does it matter? When do we have to have an exact answer, and when is an estimate okay? So on your homework, sometimes. Because I tell you in Math 113, I give a test where I want you to calculate the tip on a certain bill, and I want you to calculate a certain percent. I want you to show me 3 ways of doing it. One of them at least has an estimate. So it depends on what kind of test you're given, right? Okay. So there we have some methods. Do you all have a method that's going to work for you?
Yeah, basically when we
Okay.
just estimate it for to make it a lot easier instead of just having weird numbers.
For a restaurant, I would always estimate. I would never even calculate exact unless I'm being really, really anal that day. And sometimes I am, but mostly I'm going to estimate. Yeah. And mostly, like if you have 37.5, I'm going to round it up to 40 and go $4 for a 10% tip, $8 for a 20, and bam, I'm done. I don't even think 15 because either they were good or they were bad, and there's no. I'm just kidding.
Or estimate low so they don't get as much.
And that could be a whole nother conversation, right? But if you're just giving the same amount of tip regardless of the price of the meal, you might be handing away a lot of your money, or you might be under tipping. So think about that. Did you all get the clothing bill?